They put me in a memory care facility for 14 months, and every week my daughter and her husband came to visit me with smiles on their faces and documents for me to sign. I never signed a single one, and the day they finally let me walk out of those doors was the day I burned everything they had built on my name to the ground. My name is Walter Baxter. I am 67 years old, and for the past 422 days, the staff at Maplewood Gardens called me by my room number. Room 14. Not Walter, not Mr. Baxter, not the man who built 32 schools, 4 hospitals, and more than 200 homes across the state of Ohio with his own 2 hands. Just room 14. If you have ever been dismissed by someone who was supposed to love you, if you have ever been told you are too old, too slow, too confused to make your own decisions, then I need you to hit that like button right now, because what I am about to tell you is not just a story. It is a warning, and it is a promise. The morning they came for me started like any other Tuesday. I was in my workshop behind the house, the one Margaret and I had built together the summer after we married. The smell of sawdust and machine oil, the sound of the radio playing something from the 60s. I had been working on a rocking chair, the kind my father used to make, the kind I had promised myself I would learn before my hands forgot how. I was 66 years old, and in better shape than men 15 years younger. I hiked. I cooked my own meals. I balanced my own checkbook. I had not forgotten a single thing. Claire was the first one through the workshop door. My daughter, 38 years old, dark hair, her mother's eyes, and a tightness around her mouth that had been there for the past 2 years, ever since she married Marcus Webb. Marcus came in behind her wearing that blazer he always wore, the navy one with the gold buttons, like he was auditioning to be somebody. He was holding a leather folder, the kind lawyers carry. I noticed it immediately, because Marcus Webb had never carried anything heavier than a cocktail glass in the 4 years I had known him. There were 2 other people with them, a woman in pale green scrubs and a man in a gray suit I had never seen before. I set down my chisel. I wiped my hands on my shop rag. I looked at my daughter, and I waited for her to meet my eyes. She did not. "Dad," Claire said, and her voice had that practiced softness to it, the one she used when she was about to tell me something I was not going to want to hear. "We have been worried about you. We all have." She gestured around as if the others were witnesses to something I had done wrong. "This is Dr. Pauline Reeves, and this is Mr. Gerald Hatch." Mr. Hatch is a court-appointed guardian evaluator. I looked at the man in the gray suit. I looked at the folder in Marcus's hands. And in that single moment, the way a man who has spent 40 years reading blueprints can see the whole structure in a single glance, I understood exactly what was happening and exactly why. 2 weeks earlier, I had told Claire I was changing my will. I will not walk you through every detail of what came next, because the details are ugly and they are common, which is the worst part. Conservatorship fraud dressed up in compassionate language. A doctor I had never met signing a form that said I was showing signs of cognitive decline. A judge in a courtroom I was not present for making a ruling about my own life. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, I was sitting in room 14 at Maplewood Gardens with a twin bed, a window that looked out at a parking lot, and a legal status that said I could not manage my own affairs. Marcus Webb had his name on my accounts by Friday. What they did not know, what none of them knew, was that I had seen this coming. Not the specific day, not the scrubs in the gray suit and the leather folder, but the shape of it, the intent of it. Margaret always said I had a contractor's instincts, that I could feel a bad foundation before I ever saw the crack. She was right. I had been feeling the bad foundation in Marcus Webb for a year and a half. 6 months before they came for me, I had driven to Columbus on a Thursday morning and walked into the office of Raymond Cho. Ray had been my attorney for 22 years. He was small, precise, and absolutely ruthless when the situation called for it, which was why I liked him. I told him what I suspected. I told him what I wanted to do about it. He told me it was paranoid. I told him to do it anyway because I had built my career on preparing for the worst, and I was not about to stop now. Ray set up a holding company called Blue Ridge Properties, LLC. We transferred the deed to my workshop, the land my company's equipment yard sat on, and a specific set of contractual rights belonging to Baxter Construction into Blue Ridge. I funded it with a separate account Marcus did not know existed, the one I had kept since 1,987 inches, a credit union Margaret's family used. We backdated nothing. We falsified nothing. Every transaction was clean, legal, and documented. We just moved the pieces Marcus would need to checkmate me out of his reach before he ever sat down at the board. Then I went home and I finished the rocking chair. 14 months is a long time when you are in a place that is not your home. The days at Maplewood Gardens moved the way water moves in a clogged pipe, slow and with nowhere to go. The staff were not cruel. Most of them were tired and underpaid and doing the best they could. But the building itself was its own kind of sentence. The hallways smelled of industrial cleaner and overcooked green beans. The television in the common room was always on and always too loud. Other residents shuffled past my door at strange hours, making sounds that broke my heart. I did not break down. I did not rage. I exercised in my room every morning. I read every book the small facility library had twice. I wrote in a journal with a pen Ray had smuggled in during our first legal visit, recording everything, every conversation, every document they put in front of me. Every time Marcus or Claire came through the door with their careful expressions and their careful words. Every time they sat across from me and explained patiently that this was all for my own good, that they were protecting me, that I should just sign the quarterly asset management authorization so they could keep things running smoothly. I never signed. Not once. In 14 months, Marcus Webb could move money, but he could not sell the core assets without my signature on the liquidation papers. Ray had built that wall into the original trust structure when Baxter Construction was founded. It required the founder's wet signature for any transaction over $250,000. Marcus knew it. He had been trying to work around it for over a year. It was the only reason they had not already stripped everything down to the frame. The morning of my release came on a Wednesday in October. The air outside smelled like cold leaves and wood smoke, and I stood on the sidewalk in front of Maplewood Gardens in the same flannel shirt and work boots I had been wearing the day they brought me in because I had refused to wear anything they provided. Ray was waiting by his car. He was not driving anything fancy, an old green Subaru with a cracked bumper. It suited him. He handed me a coffee without saying anything. We both watched the entrance doors. Sure enough, 3 minutes later, Claire and Marcus pulled up in the white SUV they had bought on my line of credit 6 months earlier. Marcus was wearing the navy blazer. Of course he was. Claire got out first. She looked older than 14 months should have made her look. There were lines around her eyes that were not there before. She walked toward me with her arms half open, already composing her expression into something that resembled relief. "Dad," she said. I did not move toward her. I held the coffee with both hands and I looked at her the way you look at a wall where you have just found a structural crack. Carefully, without sentiment. "The car is right here," Marcus said from behind her. His voice was smooth as always, the voice of a man who had spent his whole life making things sound reasonable. "We have got lunch reservations. We figured you would want a proper meal. We can talk about everything. Get you settled back at home." "Home," I said. It was the first word I had spoken to either of them. "You're home," Marcus said quickly. "Obviously. Where else?" I looked past Claire at the SUV. I looked at the fresh detail job on it, the tinted windows, the new tires. I thought about the account statement Ray had shown me the day before during our final legal visit. In 14 months, Marcus Webb had spent $418,000 of Baxter Construction operating funds, equipment upgrades he never made, vendor payments to companies that did not exist, a consulting contract with an LLC registered at his brother's home address in Scottsdale. I set my coffee down on the hood of Ray's car. "I appreciate the offer," I said. "I am going to ride with Ray." Marcus's face did the thing it always did when something did not go according to plan. The smile stayed, but the warmth behind it flickered out, like a pilot light going cold. He reached for my arm. "Walter, come on," he said. "Do not be like this. The optics look bad when you—" I stepped back. I looked at his hand. I did not raise my voice. I did not have to. "The next time you put a hand on me," I said, "I will have you arrested for assault, and you will not enjoy the paperwork that follows." His hand dropped. I got into Ray's car. As we pulled away, I watched in the side mirror as Marcus stood in the parking lot of a memory care facility in a navy blazer, getting smaller and smaller, and I felt something I had not felt in over a year. I felt the specific, quiet satisfaction of a man who has been patient long enough. Ray drove in silence for a while. We got onto the highway heading south. I watched the trees going past, bare and skeletal against the gray sky. Real trees, moving at real speed. The kind of thing you stop noticing until you have been denied it for 422 days. Tell me, I said. Ray exhaled. The equipment company made an offer last month. Marcus accepted it in principle. He cannot execute without your signature. But he has been stalling, telling them you are incapacitated. He thought you would be in there longer. The guardianship hearing was supposed to be extended. It did not get extended because of the independent neurologist we brought in. The one who spent 4 hours with you and found exactly 0 evidence of cognitive decline. What did the company offer for the equipment? $3.2 million. It is worth 6. I let that sit for a moment. The property on Delwood Road, I said. The equipment yard. Safe, Ray said. Blue Ridge holds it clean. Marcus does not know about Blue Ridge. Marcus does not know about Blue Ridge, Ray confirmed. He has been operating under the assumption that he controls everything. He does not. I looked out at the highway. A truck was passing us on the left, a big flatbed carrying steel beams. I watched it until it disappeared ahead. How much did he spend? Ray quoted the number I already knew from the statement. Then he added, "There is more. The house. What about it?" He took out a second mortgage. $280,000. He used the equity to fund a startup he is running with his brother. Some kind of real estate wholesaling operation in Arizona. He used your name on the initial investor materials. I closed my eyes for exactly 5 seconds. Then I opened them. That is wire fraud, I said. That, Ray said carefully, is wire fraud. The house my wife and I had bought in 1988 was a white colonial on 2 acres on the west side of Columbus. Margaret had planted a garden along the south fence that took her 15 years to get right. Roses and dahlias and a Japanese maple that had grown to be taller than the back porch roof. She tended it the way some people tend to prayer, with patience and repetition and the belief that beauty requires work. I was not prepared for what they had done to it. Ray turned into the driveway and I saw the fence first. They had taken it down. The whole south fence was gone, replaced by a gravel parking pad that still had the chalk marks of the contractor's layout. The maple was gone, not trimmed, not relocated. Gone. Cut to a stump with the rings exposed to the weather. The rose beds had been turned under. There was nothing there now but gray gravel and a basketball hoop Marcus had installed above the garage door. I sat in Ray's car and I looked at the stump. "I am sorry, Walter," Ray said quietly. "I should have warned you." I did not answer him for a long moment. I was doing something I had learned to do in that small room at Maplewood Gardens. I was taking the feeling, the specific grief of that stump, and I was compressing it, folding it down small and dense and hard, not burying it, not denying it, just storing it somewhere it would not make me reckless when I needed to be precise. "Do not be sorry," I said. "I am going to need it." I got out of the car. The inside of the house had been rearranged in the way people rearrange things when they believe the original owner is never coming back. Margaret's reading chair, the wingback one with the yellow upholstery she had reupholstered twice because she loved the shape of it, was gone. The bookshelves in the study had been emptied and the books boxed up, replaced with a bar cart and a television mounted too high on the wall. The kitchen had been painted a gray that Margaret would have called cold and cheerless. I walked through every room slowly. I did not touch anything. I was making a catalog, the way you walk a job site before demolition, noting what can be saved and what cannot. In the master bedroom closet, pushed to the back behind a row of Marcus's suits, I found Margaret's cedar chest. They had not gotten rid of it, probably because it was heavy, and because Marcus was the kind of man who never moved anything he did not have to. I opened it. Her sweaters, her Christmas ornaments wrapped in tissue paper, and underneath, in a tin with a painted rooster on the lid, her recipe cards, her handwriting on index cards, the loops of her G's, and the way she always drew a small star next to recipes that were her favorites. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time holding that tin. Then I put it in my jacket pocket, stood up, and got back to work. Ray had arranged for me to stay at a hotel downtown for the time being. Before we went there, I asked him to drive me somewhere else first. Across town, past the river, into the neighborhood where the old warehouses had been converted to studios and small businesses. There was a diner there called Paulette's, the kind of place with a countertop and pie under glass domes and coffee that tasted like it had been made by someone who actually drank coffee. I found him in the back booth, the same one he always took when he wanted to think, because it had a clear line of sight to the door and the back exit both. Eddie Briggs, my foreman for 23 years. He was a big man in his late 50s with hands like sledgehammers and a face that had been weathered by every variety of Ohio weather. He had been passed over for the foreman job twice before I hired him, and he had been loyal to me the way people are loyal when someone finally sees them right. He stood up when I walked in. He did not say anything. He just put out his hand, and when I took it, he held it for a moment longer than a handshake required. "You look like yourself," he said finally. "That is the plan," I said. We sat down. The waitress brought coffee. I told Eddie what I needed him to do. He listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I had always valued about him. He was not the kind of man who performed listening. He actually did it. "The union crew," I said. "The old ones. The ones who were with Baxter before Marcus came into the picture." "I know who you mean," Eddie said. "The company's employee stock plan, the one I set up in 2009. Those shares still exist." "They do," he said. "Marcus tried to buy them out last spring. Offered 60 cents on the dollar. Most of the guys told him where to go." I nodded. "How many held on?" Eddie thought for a moment. "Enough," he said. "Enough for what you're thinking. I need proxy forms," I told him. "I need every man and woman who held on to those shares to sign their voting rights over to me before the end of this week. I need it done quietly. Kitchen tables and tailgates, not emails. Nothing written on anything with a company letterhead." Eddie looked at me steadily. "And then what?" "And then I am going to walk into my own boardroom," I said, "and remind Marcus Webb exactly whose name is on the building." Eddie picked up his coffee. He took a long, slow sip. Then he set it down and said, "I will make some calls tonight." That was Thursday. By Sunday evening, I had 21 proxy forms signed by the people who had built Baxter Construction with their bodies and their years. Electricians and concrete finishers and project managers who had driven my trucks and read my blueprints and cashed my Christmas bonuses for 2 decades. Marcus had managed their retirement accounts and spoken at their safety meetings and called them team and family. And most of them had known, the way working people always know, that he did not mean a word of it. Marcus called me on Saturday. He had heard I was back in the hotel. His voice on the phone was careful and warm, the voice of a man trying to figure out how much trouble he was in. "Walter," he said, "I have been trying to reach you. Claire is beside herself. She wants to see you. We all do. I know the transition has been difficult. I want to sit down and talk about moving forward, about what the right plan looks like for all of us." "Sure," I said. "Monday morning, the boardroom, 10 o'clock. There was a pause. "The boardroom," he repeated. "That is what I said." Another pause. "Of course. Absolutely. I will make sure. Bring a lawyer," I told him. "And Marcus, wear something other than that blazer for once in your life." I hung up. Monday morning I arrived at the Baxter Construction offices at 9:30. The building was a low brick structure on the commercial side of town with my father's original logo still in the glass above the entrance. A compass and a square. Measure twice, cut once. It was the first thing he taught me and the last thing he said to me before he died. The receptionist, a young woman named Danny, who had worked the front desk for 3 years, looked up when I walked in. Her eyes went wide. Then they went bright. "Mr. Baxter," she said. "Good morning, Danny," I said. "Is the boardroom unlocked?" She was already reaching for her keyboard. "Yes, sir," she said. "I will get the lights." I went in, and I sat at the far end of the table, the end that had always been mine, and I set my folder down, and I waited. Marcus arrived at 10 past 10 with a man I did not recognize, a younger attorney carrying a slim briefcase with too many brass clasps on it. Claire was not with him. I noticed that. I would think about it later. He stopped when he saw me sitting at the head of the table. He had expected, I think, to find me standing near the window, or sitting somewhere in the middle, somewhere that could be managed. He had not expected the head of the table. He recovered quickly. He sat down on the right side, his attorney next to him. He opened his hands on the table in the gesture of a reasonable man. Walter, I am glad you are feeling better. I want you to know that everything Claire and I did was out of genuine concern. The evaluation team felt strongly that, how much did you take? I said. He blinked. I am sorry? From the operating accounts, I said. I have the statements. Ray walked me through them on Friday. I am giving you an opportunity right now, before we go any further, to give me the number yourself. Because the number I have and the number you give me will tell me everything I need to know about how this conversation goes. His attorney put a hand on his arm. Marcus looked at the hand and then looked back at me. There were legitimate business expenses, he said carefully. Investments in the company's growth. I can document every $418,000, I said. Give or take. He did not answer. Plus the second mortgage, I continued. $280,000. And the investor materials for the Arizona venture that had my name on them without my knowledge or authorization. I picked up a sheet from my folder and slid it across the table. That one is federal, Marcus. That is not a civil matter. He looked at the sheet. His attorney picked it up, read it, and set it down with the careful slowness of a man who suddenly wishes he had made different choices about which clients to take. You cannot prove any of this, Marcus said. But there was a tremor under the words now, a vibration in the foundation. I reached into my folder and removed a second sheet. This was the proxy summary. 21 names, 21 signatures, the percentage of voting stock they represented. Do you remember the employee stock ownership plan? I asked. The one I set up before you arrived? The one you tried to buy out at 60 cents on the dollar? He went still. Those shares still exist, I said. And the people who own them signed a document this weekend giving me their voting rights. I laid the sheet on the table between us, which means I currently control enough of this company to call an emergency board meeting, which I did this morning, before you arrived. The board has voted to suspend your executive authority pending a full financial audit. Marcus stood up. His chair scraped back hard against the floor. You cannot do that. You do not have legal standing. The court ruled. The court ruling was vacated on Friday, Ray said from the doorway. I had not heard him come in. He was holding his own folder and he looked, as he always looked when things were going according to plan, almost dangerously calm. I filed the motion with the independent neurologist's assessment on Wednesday. The judge signed the order Friday afternoon. Walter Baxter has full legal capacity and full civil rights restored, effective immediately. He walked in and sat next to me. Which means the 14-month conservatorship was premature at minimum and fraudulent at best, depending on what the audit finds. He opened his folder. I have already been in contact with the State Attorney General's office. They are very interested in the Maplewood Gardens placement and the circumstances surrounding the initial petition. Marcus looked at his attorney. His attorney was examining the ceiling. I want to talk to Claire, Marcus said. His voice had lost its smoothness. He sounded like what he was, a man who had been building on someone else's foundation and had just heard it crack. Claire is not here, I said. I know she is not here, he said. I need to call her. You can call her, I said. But she cannot help you. Not with this. He pulled out his phone. He called her. I watched him listening. I watched his face as she spoke. I watched the moment when he understood that Claire was not coming to the boardroom. She was not in Ohio at all. She had driven to her aunt's house in Michigan on Saturday night, 2 days after I had called her on her private number, the one Marcus did not monitor, and spoken to her for the first time in 14 months. Not to forgive her. Not yet. But to give her a choice. To tell her what was coming and ask her which side of it she wanted to be standing on when it arrived. She had cried for a long time on the phone. She had said things that I needed to hear, and things that were too late to matter, and things that I was not sure yet what to do with. She was not innocent. She had signed the initial petition. She had believed Marcus, or she had wanted to believe him, which is its own kind of choosing. But she was not Marcus, and she was still my daughter. Those two facts were going to have to live next to each other for a long time, and I did not know yet how much space to give them. I had told her to go to Michigan and stay there. Marcus lowered his phone. He looked at me across the table, and for the first time since I had known him, there was nothing smooth about him at all. He looked like what he was under everything. A man who had bet everything on a gamble and discovered that the other player had been counting cards from the beginning. "How?" he said. That was all. Just the word. I thought about the workshop, the sawdust and the machine oil, the radio in the corner, the chisel in my hand the morning they came for me. "I built things for 40 years, I said. Hospitals and schools and houses. Every one of them started the same way. You look at the site, you look at the ground, you figure out where it can fail before you pour a single yard of concrete." I looked at him. I looked at this site for a long time before I poured anything. He sat back down slowly. His attorney was already quietly packing his briefcase. "The audit," I said, "is going to find what it finds. If you cooperate fully, that will matter to the state attorney general. If you do not, it will matter more. I am not a vindictive man, Marcus. I am a precise one. I want what was taken, and I want the record corrected. What happens after that is largely up to you." He did not answer. He sat there looking at the table. Outside through the glass wall, I could see Danny at her desk, and Eddie standing near the elevator, and two other men I recognized, old project managers who had worked with me through the 90s, who had driven out this morning when Eddie called because they wanted to be there when it happened. The rest of that week moved the way weeks move when you are rebuilding something, fast in the doing and slow in the feeling. The audit team came in and went through 14 months of transactions with the thoroughness of people who have seen this before and are angry about it. Ray filed the criminal referral with the AG's office on Wednesday. By Thursday, Marcus's personal accounts were frozen pending investigation. He was staying at a hotel on the east side. His attorney, the one with the brass clasps, had been replaced by a public defender because it turned out that the money for private representation had come from the same operating accounts that were now evidence. Claire came back from Michigan on Friday. She did not call ahead. I was in the boardroom going through quarterly reports when Danny knocked and said there was someone in the lobby. I went out and found my daughter sitting in one of the chairs by the entrance, holding her coat in her lap and looking at the compass and square logo in the glass above the door. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. "I do not expect you to forgive me," she said. "I am not here for that. I am here because Ray said there are things I need to sign." "There are," I said. We went through them in the small conference room, the documents that cleared up the title questions, the statement for the AG's office that Ray needed to corroborate the timeline. She signed everything without arguing. Her hand was steady. She kept her eyes on the pages. When it was done, she sat for a moment with her hands flat on the table. "He told me you were forgetting things," she said. He showed me a video on his phone. "You were in the workshop and you stopped in the middle of a sentence and just stood there. He said it had been happening for months. He said you had signed a check to the wrong contractor 3 times in 1 week. He said you needed help and that you would never ask for it yourself." "I know what he said," I told her. "Was any of it true?" "No." She closed her eyes. She breathed in slowly and then out. "I wanted to believe him," she said. "I think that is the part I am most ashamed of. I wanted a reason that made it not my fault." She opened her eyes and looked at me. "That is not an excuse." "I know it is not," I said. We sat with that for a while. The building made its sounds around us, phones ringing in the distance, the elevator, someone laughing in the break room, the ordinary sounds of people working. "Your mother's recipe cards," I said. "The ones in the tin with the rooster. Do you know where they are?" Her face changed. She nodded. "They are in my car," she said. "I took them before I left for Michigan. I did not want them to get lost." I looked at her. "Go get them," I said. She brought the tin in and set it on the table between us. I put my hand on the lid, but I did not open it. I did not need to. I just needed to know where it was. The day the story found its proper ending was not the day Marcus was arrested, though that day came, 3 weeks later, on a cold Tuesday morning, when 2 officers from the Financial Crimes Unit arrived at his hotel with a warrant. It was not the day the civil judgment was filed, or the day the conservatorship was formally expunged from the public record as having been obtained through misrepresentation. It was a Saturday in November. Eddie had gotten some of the crew together, not for a job, just because some of them had heard what happened and they wanted to be there. They showed up at the house on Saturday morning with their trucks and their tools and a flatbed carrying a load of cedar fencing. By early afternoon, the parking pad was broken up and hauled away. By late afternoon, the ground along the south fence had been turned over and amended, and a new fence was standing. Young plants, dormant for the winter, were put in along the row. Roses, dahlias, a Japanese maple, small and promising, planted where the old stump had been ground down. It was not the garden Margaret had spent 15 years making. That could not be replaced. But it was the shape of it, the intention of it. And in the spring, it would start to become itself. Eddie came and stood next to me when they were cleaning up. The sun was going down early the way it does in Ohio in November, everything turning copper and shadow. "You going to be all right here alone?" he said. "I am not alone," I said. "I meant in the house. Just you and all this quiet." I thought about the workshop behind the house, the rocking chair I had never finished, the smell of sawdust waiting in there, patient as wood always is, unchanged by everything that had happened above it. "I have got some work to finish," I said. He nodded. He understood. After they left, I went inside and stood in the kitchen for a while. The gray paint Claire and I were going to redo in the spring. Margaret's chair was still gone, and I had not replaced it yet, but I had found a good candidate at an estate sale the week before, and it was waiting in the back of Ray's car. The house felt emptier than a house should feel when you are standing in it. But it also felt like mine again, which is a feeling you do not fully appreciate until someone has taken it from you. I opened the tin, and I took out one of Margaret's recipe cards. It was her beef stew. Her star was in the corner, small and precise, 2 inches of blue ink that had been sitting in a cedar chest through everything. I propped it against the backsplash, and I found what I needed in the pantry, and I started cooking. People talk about family like it is a fact of nature, like it is weather, like you did not choose it and cannot change it and simply have to endure whatever it brings. But that is not what I learned in 14 months in a room that was not mine, with a number instead of a name, watching through a window at a parking lot. What I learned is this: the people who deserve to be called family are the ones who show up. They are Eddie in the booth at Paulette's, listening without interrupting. They are Ray in his cracked bumper Subaru, bringing coffee and doing the work. They are 21 working people who turned down 60 cents on the dollar because they knew what was right. They are a daughter who drove to Michigan and came back and brought the tin. And sometimes they are the person you lost who left you a recipe card with a star in the corner to tell you which ones mattered most. I am Walter Baxter. I am 67 years old. I spent 14 months being called Room 14. I lost a garden and a chair and more than a year of my life to the assumption that I was too old to manage what was mine. I got it back. All of it that could be gotten back. And the things that could not be gotten back, I am learning to carry differently. Not lighter, just better. If this story is yours in any way, if you have ever been told you are less than you are by someone who needed you to believe it, I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment. Tell me where you are watching from and tell me what you held on to when they tried to take everything. I read every one. And, if you know someone who needs to hear this, pass it along. Because the worst thing about this kind of theft is how quietly it happens and how many people it happens to every single day. I will see you in the next one.